Hello, welcome back to my channel. This is the top 5 Wednesday. I know I haven't done one of these in a while, but I did say I was going to try and get better at them, so here we go, we'll give it another try. This week's theme is books from before you joined BookTube or started your blog or did whatever you do. Now I started my blog and my YouTube channel in January this year, so these are my top 5 books from before that, so before all the books I read and discovered thanks to BookTube. So let's go right into it. So the first book on my list is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I have a extensive Pride and Prejudice collection, including foreign editions in other languages and pretty editions like this. This one I purchased this year actually when I went on holiday to America. So this is the Barnes & Noble classic edition. It's been one of my favourite books ever since I first read it back in school, and I reread it every year without fail. So yeah. The next book is Poison Study by Maria V. Snyder. This is about a girl called Yelena who is basically sentenced to death, but is offered the chance not to die, but instead to become the king's taste tester, or food tester. That's the one, food taster, to make sure that the food isn't poisoned. Essentially, there are 6 books in the series. The last one having come out earlier this year, but this one I got back in 2010, I think it was, and it's kindly signed inside by Maria as well, who I met a couple of years ago, and she signed all of my books for me. But yeah, so Poison Study by Maria V. Snyder. It was actually a gift from one of my best friends, and I am super glad to have received that. Next up is Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. This is the first book in the Infernal Devices series. It's set in her Shadowhunters world, but it's the Victorian London era, and that is Will Herondale on the front there, who I absolutely adore. I loved these books. I read them after I read the Mortal Instruments series, or books 1 to 5 in the Mortal Instruments series, and then I was waiting for the 6th book to come out and read these, and absolutely loved it. It's become one of my favourite series, and I just, every chance I get, I would highly recommend people reading these books. I just love the time period it's set in, the characters are great, and yeah, I'm a big Cassandra Clare fan, so that's the next one. The next book is a more recent discovery in the last couple of years. I read Half a King by Joe Abercrombie. I'm more of a YA reader than an adult. I know Joe Abercrombie has a lot of adult books, but he was going to a convention that I go to most years in Belfast called TitanCon, and he was releasing a YA series. So I got the first book and absolutely fell in love with the characters and really enjoyed it. It's essentially about Yavi, who is a prince who doesn't want to be king. He's much more scholarly than kingly, and it's basically about his adventures, what he has to do in order to basically save the kingdom and unite everyone. And yeah, it's a really good series. I highly recommend it. And then the last book on this list is The Call by Padda O'Gillan. I've known Padda for a few years now because he goes to the TitanCon convention that I mentioned before every year, and he generally writes quite dark horror books, which I'm really not into, but he did a reading from this book at TitanCon last year, and it's a young adult. It's still quite horror-y and quite dark, but it's a young adult series, and he did the reading and I really enjoyed it. So as soon as the book came out, I read the book and I absolutely loved it. It's so clever and just exciting and gripping, and yeah, if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It's a great read. So there we are. Those are my books from my pre-BookTube days. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you again for another one soon. Bye!